There's a strange justice woven into the fabric of this world. It moves slowly, silently, but when it arrives, it is undeniable. You see, life has a way of circling back what people thought they got away with, especially when it comes to the ones they underestimated. Chosen one. They thought you were soft. They thought your kindness meant weakness. They thought your silence meant surrender. But what they didn't understand is that still waters run the deepest, and quiet souls often carry the most unshakable power. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about proving them wrong with noise. This is about the law of balance, a law older than words, that always settles the score without your hands ever getting dirty. Because here's the truth few understand. When you're truly powerful, you don't have to fight for attention. You don't have to chase validation. You don't have to defend your heart against people who were never qualified to hold it. You just, rise. Quietly, consistently, unshaken, and by the time they realize what you carried, it's already too late. Every fake smile they gave you, every insult they thought you didn't catch, every betrayal they thought broke you, it was all stacking in your favor. While they were performing for the crowd, you were preparing for elevation. So stay with me. This message isn't just words, it's spiritual alignment. It's coded wisdom for those who've been overlooked, disrespected, or doubted. Because what's coming next isn't loud, it isn't chaotic. It's the quiet rise of someone they never saw coming. Someone who moves different because they were built different. That someone is you. Patience is not weakness. Chosen one. Let me tell you something most people never learn until it's too late. Patience is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. Your stillness was never a sign that you were lost, confused, or powerless. It was the greatest strategy you could have ever chosen. See, people who live loud, who move from impulse, who react to every insult, they never see you coming. They assume that patience means you're frozen. They believe silence means you're scared, and they laugh to themselves, thinking they've got you cornered. But what they never understand, until it's too late, is that your patience wasn't weakness, it was preparation. You were watching, listening, studying. Every move they made, every fake smile, every little jab they thought you didn't catch, you caught it, you clocked it, you stored it away, not because you were plotting revenge, but because you were sharpening your discernment. See, when people think you're soft, when they mistake grace for submission, they get sloppy. They talk too much, they reveal too much, they start showing their true character without realizing it. They drop their guard because they assume you have none. But chosen one, this is where your power began to rise, right in the middle of their deception, right in the middle of their mockery, because while they were performing, you were preparing. While they were trying to trap you, you were already 3 steps ahead, setting boundaries in your mind, making peace with walking away, deciding quietly what they would never have access to again. That's what shakes them now. It's not that you fought back with words, it's that you never needed to. You didn't need to correct their lies. You didn't need to defend your name. You didn't need to expose them. Time did it for you. Truth did it for you. Their own patterns of dishonor caught up with them. And by the time they realized they had overplayed their hand, you were already gone. See, chosen one. Patience is dangerous when it's in the hands of someone who knows who they are. It means you don't move until it's necessary. It means you don't waste energy proving anything to people who were never worthy of your truth. It means you let them think they're winning, because their ego blinds them far better than your words ever could. You watched them. You endured the disrespect, but you never absorbed it. You understood something spiritual, something unteachable. That the one who speaks last speaks strongest. That the one who moves in silence moves in power. And now what haunts them is not what you said, but what you didn't say. It's the distance. It's the absence. It's the fact that the very person they mocked for being too nice was the one who saw it all, and still chose not to stoop to their level. They were playing small games. You were building a life. They were chasing attention. You were chasing purpose. And purpose always wins. Patience is not weakness. It's control. It's restraint. It's wisdom. It's knowing that timing matters more than noise. It's knowing that real power doesn't perform, it prepares, and chosen one. You've been preparing all along. That's why the next season of your life will look effortless. That's why your rise will feel like it came out of nowhere. But you and I know better. It didn't come from nowhere. It came from everywhere. From everything you endured quietly. From everything you learned in silence. From everything they tried to use against you. It all became fuel. It all became wisdom. And now, while they sit haunted by what they lost, you move forward untouched, unbothered, unbreakable. Remember this. Patience is never weakness, it's divine positioning. It's the secret strength of the chosen ones. And it will always be the reason why you rise, while they fall into the very traps they set for you. Let them talk. Let them perform. Let them assume. Because you know the truth, the most powerful ones move quietly. Silent power rearranges the whole game. Chosen one. Let's get one thing clear. Real power was never about noise. Real power doesn't need a stage. It doesn't need approval. It doesn't need to prove itself. Real power prepares. Real power observes. Real power is quiet until it no longer needs to be. And that is why you were always dangerous. See, the loudest people in the room usually reveal the most about themselves. They talk too fast. They boast too often. They expose their insecurities with every word they speak. They depend on being seen. They depend on being heard. But you were never built like that. You were never loud. You were never desperate for attention. While they were shouting, performing, flexing their fake strength in front of anybody who would look, you were silent. You were moving differently, and that terrified them. Even if they didn't admit it, they just didn't understand it yet. Because here's a spiritual truth you've learned the hard way. The underestimated are always the most dangerous. Because when people assume you are weak, they drop their guard. They speak freely, they expose their intentions, they underestimate your capacity, and that's exactly how you stayed 10 steps ahead. While they were busy showing off, you were building in secret. While they were mocking your kindness, you were mastering your craft. While they thought they had you figured out, you were evolving into someone they could no longer access. This is why your rise feels terrifying to them now. Because you never warned them. You never gave them a chance to prepare. You simply outgrew their games. You outlasted their noise. You built something real while they built illusions. And by the time they realized what was happening, it was already too late. They were looking for warriors in armor. Loud, aggressive, predictable. But you were the ghost in the room. You were the storm in still air. You were the one watching, learning, waiting. See, that's the power of a silent observer. You're not just reacting to what people do. You're studying how they operate. You're reading their patterns. You're seeing their weaknesses. Not to harm them, but to protect your peace, your future, your energy. Because chosen one, silent power is not about revenge. It's about preparation. It's about becoming so rooted in who you are that you don't need to announce every move. Your results become your voice. Your discipline becomes your proof. Your absence becomes your boundary. That's why they're haunted now. Not because you fought them, but because you never had to. You didn't shout, you didn't argue, you didn't explain. You simply rose, and their worst fear came true. You became untouchable. This is what happens when a chosen one stops explaining themselves. This is what happens when a chosen one moves in silence. The game changes. The room shifts. The control they thought they had evaporates, and they're left sitting in the ruins of their own arrogance, wondering how they lost someone they never truly understood. Remember this forever. Loud people build moments. Quiet people build empires. Let them perform, let them talk, let them laugh, because by the time they realize who you really are, it will no longer matter. You'll be gone. You'll be elevated. You'll be operating in dimensions they can't even reach. Silent power rearranges the whole game, not because it fights harder, but because it never needed to fight at all. Chosen one. This is the path you were always meant to walk. Not loud, not desperate, not reactive, but strategic, focused, unstoppable. Let them feel safe underestimating you. Let them play their small games, because when your time comes, and it will come, they won't see it coming. And when it's over, they'll realize you never needed to win their approval. You were winning the whole time, in silence. Smiling doesn't mean blindness. Chosen one. Let me remind you of something sacred. Just because you smiled doesn't mean you didn't see what they did. Your kindness was never blindness. Your grace was never permission. Your patience was never surrender. They thought it was. They thought your calm face, your steady energy, your quiet forgiveness meant they had you wrapped around their finger. They mistook your heart for weakness, but they never understood who they were dealing with. See, your smile wasn't because you were naive. Your smile wasn't because you didn't notice the little lies, the shady moves, the fake compliments. You saw it all. You felt it all. But you made a decision most people aren't strong enough to make. You stayed composed. You stayed patient. Because chosen ones don't waste energy reacting to every snake that hisses. You knew their character long before they revealed it fully. You knew the truth long before the mask slipped, but that's the power they never calculated. Your restraint. See, people like them depend on their target being emotional. They depend on outbursts. They depend on you breaking down. They expect you to beg for clarity, for closure, for honesty. But you never needed it. You never begged. You never chased. Because what they didn't understand was this. Your kindness was for you, not for them. It was a reflection of your character, not theirs. You stayed true to who you were, even while they were being false. That's what rattles them now. Not that you confronted them, but that you didn't. Not that you needed them, but that you didn't need anything from them at all. See, when a chosen one smiles in the face of betrayal, it's not weakness, it's prophecy. It means you've already decided. It means the door is closing. It means the exit is being prepared quietly, because when a chosen one walks away, we don't return. We don't re-explain. We don't renegotiate. When grace runs out, the silence that follows is permanent. And that's what burns the deepest. They weren't prepared for your absence. They weren't prepared for the version of you that stops answering. They weren't prepared for the smile that turned ice cold when their mask fell. You didn't change out of anger. You changed out of clarity. You finally saw them for who they were, and it didn't shake you. It freed you. Because here's the thing people like them never understand. Your love is deep. Your patience is wide. But your boundaries are final. They thought you were soft because you gave them time to get it right. They thought you were sweet because you forgave things most wouldn't. But they misunderstood the most powerful part of your nature. Your ability to walk away completely, without a scene, without closure, without regret. You weren't born to be a doormat. You weren't created to be somebody's emotional punching bag. You are chosen, and chosen ones don't stay where respect no longer lives. Chosen ones don't keep explaining themselves to people committed to misunderstanding them. Chosen ones don't pour love into cups that leak. Your smile was never blindness. It was grace. It was restraint. It was a quiet warning. And when that grace ran out, the door closed, and it will stay closed. Let them sit with their regret. Let them replay their mistakes. Let them feel the chill of your absence, because you didn't lose them. They lost you. And a chosen one never has to chase what God has already removed. So hold your head high. Keep your peace unshaken, keep your smile, but guard your heart, because your kindness is your strength, but your boundaries, that's your power. Grace versus surrender. Chosen one. There's a line that most people never see until it's already behind them. It's the line between grace and surrender. And when that line is crossed, something in you shifts forever. You see, people mistook your grace as a sign that you'd never leave, that you'd never speak up, that you'd just keep turning the other cheek while they lit fires behind your back. They saw your calm and called it weakness. They saw your silence and called it fear. They saw your love and called it naivety. But what they didn't realize, and what they were never meant to understand, is that grace is not the same as surrender. Grace is strength under control. Grace is power with a leash. Grace is choosing peace even when you've earned the right to bring chaos. But that grace has limits, and once you cross it, there's no going back. Because chosen one, you weren't being passive. You were being precise. You weren't ignoring the disrespect. You were deciding it wasn't worth your energy. You weren't surrendering. You were watching. And when the moment came to act, you didn't warn them. You didn't explode. You didn't fight to be heard. You simply walked away. And that's what left them breathless. That's what hit them harder than any confrontation ever could. Because the most terrifying move a chosen one can make is complete silence after repeated grace. You gave chances. You offered clarity. You held space, but when your soul whispered enough, you didn't argue with it. You listened, and when you moved, you didn't just shift your behavior, you shifted your presence. Gone. No more explanations, no more emotional labor, no more waiting for someone to value what they took for granted. See, some people confuse calmness with compliance. But real calm, spiritual calm, is rooted in the ability to walk away without bitterness, to remove yourself from the fire without needing to throw one last match, because not every battle deserves your response. Some just deserve your absence, and your absence is what rattles them now. They can't text their way out of it. They can't manipulate their way back in. They can't charm, guilt, or shame you into softening. Why? Because you've already made peace with letting go. You're no longer reacting, you're realigning, and that's the difference. You didn't lose control, it's you took control, and that control came quietly calmly permanently. They never realized grace wasn't a contract. It was a gift. It wasn't a promise to stay. It was an invitation to rise. And when they rejected it, abused it, or played with it, the door closed. This is the truth most can't face. Chosen ones may be full of grace, but we do not surrender. Our silence doesn't mean you won. It means you're no longer worth the war. We reserve our fight for things that build, not things that bleed us. And when we walk, we don't circle back. Because our calm wasn't emptiness, it was calculation. And our exit wasn't loud, it was final. So let them sit in their confusion. Let them wonder how someone so soft could be so absolute. Let them replay the moment grace turned into goodbye. Because now, they're not haunted by what you said. They're haunted by what you'll never say again. And that, chosen one, is the storm that comes without warning. A shift in energy, a vanishing of presence, a closed door they never expected. And no matter how hard they knock, it won't open again. Because grace offered again and again is powerful. But grace withdrawn, that's unstoppable. Fire and warmth come from the same source, chosen one. There's something about your presence that draws people in. It's your warmth, your calm, your quiet strength. People feel safe around you. They lean in. They trust you before they even understand why. You don't have to prove anything. Your energy says it all. You carry peace like a cloak. You walk into chaos and don't flinch. You offer kindness without expectation. And because of that, they underestimate you. They confuse your warmth for weakness. They think because you don't lash out, you won't push back. They believe because you're patient, you'll stay forever. But what they always forget is that fire and warmth come from the same source. And when that fire is triggered, it burns everything they thought they could control. See? People with twisted intentions are always drawn to light. They're attracted to comfort they can't replicate. They want the security you give, the peace you radiate, the loyalty you offer. But instead of respecting it, they start taking. They lean too hard. They ask too much. They push too far because they assume you're limitless. They assume you're unshakable. They assume that just because you stayed steady through the storm, you'll never strike back. But chosen one, let me say this clearly. Patience is not infinite. Warmth is not unconditional. And you are not here to carry everyone's weight at the cost of your own soul. There's a boundary, a line they don't see until they're standing in ashes. Because when someone keeps testing the one who never reacts, they forget you don't explode. You end things. You don't throw tantrums. You vanish. You don't scream. You close the door and never look back. And that moment when your warmth turns cold, it's irreversible. Not because you hate them, but because you finally realize they never respected your kindness. They only consumed it. They thought you existed to absorb their chaos. They saw your light and tried to dim it. And when the line was crossed, you didn't shout. You didn't threaten. You didn't even warn them. You just shifted. Your voice got quieter. Your energy pulled back. Your presence dimmed, and then it disappeared. That's the fire they weren't ready for. Not the kind that destroys loudly, but the kind that moves silently, leaving nothing behind but the burn. And now, they're not admiring your warmth anymore. They're running from your fire because they realize the version of you they took for granted is gone. Forever. That's the lesson of a chosen one's love. It's deep, but not bottomless. That's the danger of your grace. It extends far, but it has an edge. You didn't change out of bitterness. You changed out of alignment. You didn't become cold because you're angry. You became focused. Because love doesn't mean self-destruction. Peace doesn't mean tolerance for disrespect. And warmth, it's a gift, not a guarantee. So let them talk about how different you've become. Let them call you distant, cold, heartless, because what they're really feeling is the heat of the fire they lit and the boundary they never thought you'd enforce. They thought you were a candle. Turns out you were a furnace. And now they know fire and warmth come from the same source, and they were never meant to play with either. Chosen one, never feel guilty for drawing that line. Never apologize for protecting your peace. Your fire isn't for destruction. It's for discernment. It's there to remind the world your love has power, but it also has a limit. And once that limit is crossed, you don't become cruel, you become clear. Let them build their own trap. Chosen one. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. Not because you don't see what's happening, not because you don't know the truth, but because real wisdom understands this. People who move with deception always build their own trap, and you don't have to fight them. You don't have to expose them. You don't have to lift a finger. You just step aside and let their own actions do the work. See, people like that, the ones who lie, manipulate, and scheme, they operate from ego. They think they're clever. They think they're in control. They think you're blind because you're quiet. But what they never realized, until it's too late, is that you were never confused. You were patient. You were watching. And while they were busy digging a trap for you, their arrogance was building a much deeper pit for themselves. Every lie they told was a brick in their own downfall. Every shady move was another layer of their exposure. Every time they thought they were getting away with it, they were stacking evidence against their own future. You didn't have to defend yourself. You didn't have to prove them wrong. You didn't have to get revenge, because the universe has rules, spiritual laws, and one of those laws is this: what you build in deception collapses in exposure. Always. That's why your greatest weapon was never loud confrontation. It was non-reaction. It was strategy. It was trust, not in them, but in timing. You let them talk. You let them laugh. You let them believe whatever they needed to believe to feel powerful. And all the while, you were backing up quietly, with your peace intact, with your dignity untouched, because you knew something they didn't. Loud people destroy themselves faster. Their need for attention, their obsession with control, their addiction to manipulation, all of it blinds them. And by the time they realize you've seen through it, by the time they realize you're gone, by the time they look around for someone to blame, they're standing alone, surrounded by the ruins of their own lies. That's what haunts them now. Not your anger, not your words, but your absence. Because silence is clarity. It's maturity. It's proof that you never needed to fight dirty. They were doing it to themselves the whole time. Chosen one, let this be your reminder. Not every battle is yours to fight. Not every insult deserves your energy. Not every betrayal deserves your reaction. Some people are so committed to their own destruction. All you have to do is get out of the way. Let them dig. Let them build. Let them brag about victories that don't exist. Because in the end, the truth doesn't need defending. It stands on its own. And the ones who plotted against you, they're not celebrating now. They're scrambling. They're confused. They're watching the collapse of everything they thought would trap you, only to realize it was never your downfall being built. It was theirs. This is the power of restraint. This is the power of stillness. This is the power of the chosen ones. We don't rush. We don't react. We rise, and while they're busy fighting battles that don't matter, we're building lives that last. Remember this: you never needed to destroy them. They were always destroying themselves. You just had the wisdom to step aside and let the trap close in behind them. Silent exit, maximum impact. Chosen one. Sometimes the loudest thing you will ever say is nothing at all. No argument, no warning, no explanation, just silence, just absence, just a door that closes and never reopens. You see, people who play with your heart, people who lie to your face, people who test your patience over and over, they never expect you to leave. Why? Because you stayed longer than most would. You gave more chances than most would. You forgave more times than anyone else would. They got comfortable. They thought you were stuck. They thought you were trapped in their cycle. They thought your grace was permanent. But what they didn't know was that you were counting every betrayal, counting every lie, counting every little cut they thought you didn't feel, not because you were petty, but because you were measuring their character, measuring your peace, measuring when enough would finally be enough. And when it was, you didn't explode, you didn't curse them out, you didn't throw their mistakes back in their face. No, you just stopped showing up, stopped answering, stopped engaging. You removed your energy like pulling the sun from the sky, and that silence, that absence, it's louder than any confrontation, because words give people a chance to argue. Closure gives them comfort. But your silence, your exit without warning, that's what lingers in their mind forever. It's what replays in their head late at night. It's what makes them question every move they made. Because when a chosen one walks away quietly, it's not weakness, it's finality, it's control, it's spiritual power. See, anyone can yell, anyone can argue, anyone can put on a scene, but not everyone can leave with grace. Not everyone can disappear without bitterness. Not everyone can exit clean. You did. And that's why they feel the loss so deeply. They thought you would always be there. They thought they had time to keep playing games. They thought their behavior didn't have consequences. Until one day, you were just gone. No text, no fight, no closure, just gone. And the space you left, it echoes, it exposes them, because now they have to sit in their own chaos. They have to face their own reflection. They have to deal with the fallout they created, without you there to absorb it, without you there to fix it, without you there to soften the blow. And that's the real punishment. That's the real consequence. You didn't destroy them. You let them destroy themselves. You didn't curse them. You blessed them by leaving. Because sometimes the best thing you can do for your soul is exit without noise. Let them deal with their choices. Let them face their patterns. Let them feel the absence of what they took for granted. Chosen one. Never doubt the power of your exit. Never question the strength it took to stay silent. You didn't lose anything when you walked away. They did. They lost access to you, to your light, to your loyalty, to your heart, and no apology can reverse that once grace has expired. You were never theirs to control, never theirs to manipulate, never theirs to drain. You belong to your purpose, to your peace, to your future. So if you ever wonder whether you should have said more, done more, explained more, let me answer that clearly. No, your silence said it all. Your absence spoke volumes, and your exit was the loudest statement you could have ever made. Keep walking, keep rising, keep your peace, because nothing shakes the earth more than the quiet exit of someone they thought would never leave. The storm they never prepared for, chosen one. They thought they had you figured out. They saw your calm, your consistency, your quiet cooperation, and they thought, harmless. They assumed your silence was submission, that your patience was passivity, that your grace was something they could twist, stretch, and test without consequence. But what they didn't know is that you were never created to be controlled. You weren't shaped in ease. You were forged in pressure, sharpened in stillness, tempered in fire. And while they were trying to pull your strings, while they played their little games thinking they were in charge, you were never really in the game at all. You were studying the rules, reading the patterns, and preparing for the moment you'd flip the whole board. They mistook your restraint for emptiness. They mistook your smile for softness. But behind all of that was a storm. And now they know. Because the version of you they once knew, the one who stayed quiet, gave grace, turned the other cheek, that version evolved. That version is gone. What remains is the storm. Not chaos, not rage, not revenge, but force. Controlled, focused, undeniable. You didn't react out of emotion. You moved with clarity, with direction, with finality. No noise, no warning, just presence, then absence, just light, then fire. And when you moved, they weren't ready. They weren't prepared for the shift in you, because they had gotten used to the calm. They never imagined you were the storm behind it. You see, people like them are always looking for a fight they can see coming. They're ready for arguments, for shouting, for drama. They know how to handle noise. But a storm, a real storm, doesn't warn. It builds quietly. It gathers power in silence. And when it hits, it changes everything. That's you now. You are the storm they never prepared for, and it terrifies them, not because you attacked, but because you didn't have to. You moved different. You spoke less. You acted once, and it was enough. Your clarity became your boundary. Your distance became your justice. Your silence became your sword. And now, they sit with the aftermath of what they thought they could control. But the truth? They never had control. They only had access. And you took it back. They didn't lose the version of you they used to manipulate. They awakened the version they thought didn't exist. The one who moves in purpose, the one who doesn't flinch, the one who doesn't come back. And that's what shakes them. That they pushed you so far, so often, assuming you'd always stay. And then one day, you didn't. One day you became the storm. You became the reminder that kindness has limits, that peace has edges, that not all silence is surrender. Some silence is strategy. Some silence is the calm before everything changes. Chosen one, never feel guilt for that transformation. Never apologize for the strength you had to become. You didn't turn cold out of cruelty. You turned inward to protect what's sacred. You walked away not to hurt them, but to honor yourself. And the impact of that decision? It will echo, it will humble, it will haunt. Because when a chosen one becomes the storm, there's no going back to who they used to be. That's who you are now. Not just soft, not just sweet, but sovereign, refined, unshakable. And anyone who tries to cross you again will learn the same lesson. Still waters aren't empty. They're deep, and storms that move in silence are the ones that change everything. The rise of the unapologetic you, chosen one. You've been through fire. You've been tested in silence, pushed to your limit, played with, misjudged, labeled as too kind, too quiet, too forgiving. And for a while you may have believed them. You may have asked yourself if you were weak, for staying, for not reacting, for continuing to love even when it hurt. But let's make this clear now, once and for all. Kindness is not weakness, and your transformation, it was never something to apologize for. They thought they were watching you break. What they were really watching, Basi, was your becoming. Because fire doesn't destroy a chosen one. It forges them. It refines. It burns off the parts of you that tolerated too much, trusted too quickly, gave too freely. It awakens the part of you that doesn't need to be liked, doesn't need to be understood, doesn't need to be explained. And now you've risen, not as someone cold and bitter, but as someone clear about who you are, clear about what you deserve, clear about what you will never again allow. There's no going back to the version of you that explained your heart to those committed to misunderstanding it. There's no returning to the days of giving countless chances to people who didn't even value the first. You're done apologizing for outgrowing people who were only ever comfortable with your smallness. They loved you when you were quiet, when you didn't speak up, when you doubted yourself. But the moment you drew a boundary, the moment you said enough, the moment you stopped over-explaining and just walked, that's when the truth showed itself. And here's what it revealed. They never loved the real you. They loved the version of you they could manipulate, the version who never said no, the version who made room for everyone, even when it left you empty. But now you're unapologetic about your peace, unapologetic about your growth, unapologetic about the distance you had to create to breathe again. You don't raise your voice anymore. You raise your standards. You don't prove your worth. You live in it. And for the ones who feel burned by your growth, they were never meant to walk with you past the fire. They were there for the lesson, not for the legacy. You're not bitter, you're better. You're not angry, you're anchored. And every scar, every betrayal, every too nice moment that they thought weakened you, it became your strength. You don't owe them softness, you don't owe them explanations, you owe yourself freedom. And that freedom only came once you stopped apologizing for your transformation. Once you stopped shrinking for comfort. Once you realized that love with no boundaries isn't love, it's self-neglect. So let them talk, let them say, you've changed. You have. And that's the point, because no one goes through fire and comes out the same. You were tested, and you didn't just survive. You became fire. And fire doesn't apologize for burning. It exists to purify, to illuminate, to reveal. Chosen one. This is the rise of the unapologetic you. Stand in it, own it, let it speak for you. Let karma handle the rest. Chosen one. You don't need revenge. You don't need to fight dirty. You don't need to get even. Because when you walk in alignment, life takes care of what you were never meant to carry. That's the beauty of your calling. That's the brilliance of divine justice. You didn't have to lift a hand. You didn't have to expose them. You didn't have to shout your truth from the rooftops. Karma did the work. You see, the ones who plotted against you, they thought they were getting away with it. They thought your silence meant ignorance. They thought their masks would never slip, but they were never playing a long game, just a loud one. And the thing about short-sighted schemes is, they always unravel. Not because you fought back, but because you didn't. You stepped back. You disengaged. You chose peace over proving a point, and in doing so, you let the universe step in. You let spiritual law handle what human ego can't. They never realized their actions were seeds. Seeds of confusion, seeds of betrayal, seeds of manipulation, and those seeds, they grow. Not right away, not with fireworks, but slowly, surely, and precisely, until one day they wake up surrounded by the very storm they started, and you're nowhere to be found. You've moved on, you've elevated, you've healed, you've stopped bleeding for people who never offered you a bandage. Because you understand this now. Fighting back would have cost you your peace, but walking away, that restored your power. Let them talk. Let them twist the story. Let them pretend they didn't break what they were never ready to hold. It doesn't matter anymore, because the truth, it doesn't need defending. It defends itself. It always rises, always surfaces, always wins. And those who thought they won by hurting you, they're not winning now. They're circling, lost in the consequences of choices they made, thinking grace had no limit. But grace did, and it walked away, chosen one. Let them face the mirror they avoided while they had you. Let them feel the weight of what they mishandled. Let karma handle what your silence already started. You didn't destroy them. Their choices did. You didn't lose them. They lost access to you. You didn't strike back. You stood back and let God finish what your heart didn't need to carry. That's not weakness. That's divine strategy. That's strength that doesn't need noise. You are not bitter. You are healed. You are not stuck. You are free. And you don't need to revisit the ruins to prove that you survived. Let karma handle the cleanup. Your job now is to rise without apology, rise without permission, rise without looking back, because the most powerful statement you'll ever make is peace, peace that couldn't be stolen, peace that couldn't be broken, peace that came after the fire and stayed. Let the fallout fall where it must. Your story has moved on, and you're not just surviving anymore, you're unshakable, you're unstoppable.